Hey family, I'm back with you again. I'm sure many of you are not lost and have not forgotten about the pressures that were applied to many of us. Again, I'm just talking about really our people with respect to taking the vaccine. Well, I'll say respect to everyone, but I wanted to really have a focus on us as a people and the different tools and methods that were used to try to convince us to take this vaccine. As the cat I said before is now out of the bag, many of us are not aware of the high number of unreported excess deaths that has occurred in many countries that rolled out the vaccine on a high level. It's United States, Canada, Australia, Europe, New Zealand, a lot of these places. Enormous amount of excess deaths in the thousands per week and in tens of thousands per month. These things have gone unreported, but they can no longer be hidden. And most of these cases of excess deaths have had no relationship with anyone, or I should say, were not caused by anyone that, let me repeat that again. Most of these excess deaths were not the result of anyone that contracted COVID and had complications to COVID. However, the one thing is that a lot of these people were proven to have received the various COVID-19 vaccines which were out there. And I wanted to say, as we look at these things, we need to understand something, that all of these nations that rule the earth, we established this regardless of what is happening around us at this time, are enemies of the Most High and enemies of his people. But the Most High uses who he will and how he does things according to his purpose. But nonetheless, we are his children, and a lot of things are directed at us. I'm sure you remember at the height of this fellow Bill Gates and his wife, one of the things that they kept repeating was how, the people on the continent, our people on the continent would be wiped out, how great the carnage would be because of COVID, and how people had to get vaccinated. Of course, we know that this proved to not be true. We also were told, which was a lie, that most black people in the West had a higher prevalence of death than anyone else with respect to COVID. That itself also proved to be an untruth. But this was the methods that were used to try to get us to take the vaccine. And so in this presentation, I just have a compilation of different things that we need to take a look at as we prepare ourselves for what's going to happen forward. For those of us, and many others unfortunately, that would not listen to the voices that were telling them that this was not the thing to do. Unfortunately, there's going to be an outcome to which many of us are going to lament. But we'll give thanks to the Most High for those of us that listened and did not give ourselves over to the manipulation and to the lies of these wicked people that were out here pushing this narrative for us to take the vaccine. And apply that term wicked also to all of the so-called leaders within the black community, church leaders, these so-called churches, Christian organizations, all of them, who were all given the same talking points that they should use and what they should come to us and say to convince us, and the way in which, in their own way, though they use the word G-O-D and J-C, we know that has nothing to do with us as the Most High's children, but the way they try to imply that, the vaccines were sent to people by the power of the Most High. Nonetheless, let's get into it.
More and more people will become eligible to get COVID-19 vaccines. The mayor of Miami-Dade County joined forces today with local black clergy to urge their congregations to have faith and not skip getting the shot. Local 10's Laren Livingston is live right now with more on that message. I heard loud and clear today, right, Laren?
Hello. Amen, Sister Christy. There was a parking lot praise that went forth today here outside of this vaccination site with a very pointed pandemic message.
I said, God is good.
This podium becoming more of a pulpit.
I am tired of this pandemic. Amen. I don't want it to develop anymore. I want it to decline to no more.
A Baptist preacher's gonna preach, this time sharing the gospel of vaccination.
God has used scientists to come up with a preventive measure to finally get us through this pandemic.
These black pastors joined the Miami-Dade County mayor, commissioners, and other community leaders promoting public health, fittingly sanitizing that podium between speakers, encouraging people to get their shots.
Some people don't want to take the vaccine. Not good sense.
This vaccine is safe, and this is our way out. And that's not just for the black community, but that's for every community.
Today I am filled with hope, I am filled with joy.
It had all of the feelings of a tent revival, tents included. The group moved inside as two of those pastors practiced what they'd been preaching, rolling up their sleeves to get their second doses of the Pfizer vaccine.
If we don't actually find a way to get a vast majority of this community vaccinated, it's going to be very difficult to have the economy that we had before. It's going to be very difficult to have the spiritual life that we had before. It's going to be very difficult to have the communal life that we had before.
This is our way out. This is our way up. And by the way, for the record, I'm not talking cheap because I've already been vaccinated.
All we were missing was the benediction, maybe even a little communion as we head into the Easter weekend. In the meantime, the mayor, you heard from her there, she says that it looks like vaccine hesitancy is declining, specifically within the black community. She cited an example from Jackson Memorial Hospital that has vaccinated about 19% of the people who've been vaccinated there are black. She says the county population of black folks is 17%. So that's some promising news on that front. In the meantime, there are teams going around the county making sure folks in underserved communities know where they can get vaccinated, have information about vaccinations and vaccination sites. They're also helping folks get registered. We're live here in Northwest Miami-Dade. Larry Livingston, Local 10 News.
And I'm happen to be one of those people who believe God created science. God created the scientists. God has gifted us with the medicine. God has gifted us with the learning to get. So I just look at the vaccine, getting to the point of finding the vaccine for me was like, this is a gift from God.
God is so big and so huge and so loving that God has invested in the hearts and minds of doctors, nurses, scientists, biologists, and those gifts that they bring to us through science, that is a direct gift of God, and that is healing. Oftentimes, God heals us miraculously, but God does a lot more healing through medicine.
We have been praying that God would give us a means to keep us covered and protected, and I believe the vaccine is that means.
I do believe that God is a miracle worker. I believe all of those things, but I do believe that there is a percentage that we have to contribute in everything, you know? And so taking the vaccine is just our part.
The scripture tells us that faith without works is dead. You have to put some action behind it. Taking the vaccine is an action that you need to take to put behind the faith that you have.
I think my faith and confidence in the Lord and His abilities to work through divinely appointed scientists and medical professionals kind of catapulted me and gave me the confidence to go ahead and go through with it.
Having hesitations about something new that's out, some new medicine, new vaccine, I think that's natural and normal, I think, but to be a good steward, do the work, you know, get the good information. And I don't think the good information necessarily is social media or what your friends or everybody in the world wants to post about.
We have allowed social media and stuff like this to give us quick answers versus us putting in the work and going and finding real answers. So that's what I did, went and did some research, read some stuff, and said, okay, this is making more sense. This is making more sense.
What caused me to take the vaccine was, number one, I did my research. I talked to peers, other pastors. I talked to various physicians and leaders in the medical field. After doing so, I felt comfortable, and so through prayer, I was not only able to take it myself, but I was able to be an encourager to others, as I have experienced after having taken it, that I did not have any side effects or anything. And so I try to encourage others to do the same.
I wanted to be an influence to our congregation. I took it right on the stage. The Sunday we had the vaccination, I was the first one to do it, so I felt like if I take it first, then maybe that would ease some apprehension. Because they would say if my pastor would do it, he wouldn't lead us anywhere that he wouldn't go himself. They saw that example and they followed it, many of them.
I have never been hesitant about taking the vaccine. I've always felt that the vaccine was safe. There were literally hundreds of thousands of people who had taken the vaccine by the time I took the vaccine that had no ill effects.
So we're really working on the base of trust and that we do no harm to anyone. And if we were allow our children, our family, our grandparents, or my father's 87 years old, he had the shot, that surely they should trust us enough, but trust God, that this vaccine is safe and it is the best thing that we can do right now to protect ourselves.
I prayed and asked God to give us something and give us some type of way. And so I was first in line to be vaccinated and receive the vaccine.
And for those people who say, well, I'm gonna die when it's my time to die. And I say to them, but God gives you the ability to extend your time. God gives you the ability to make the decisions that you need to make. When we talk about our time is our time, you go stand in the middle of an interstate, that's gonna be your time, but that was your decision, not God's decision.
If he's gonna take care of us, he's gonna do it because we've had the proper actions. So when I get in my car and pray God take care of me, I also put on my seatbelt because I want God to take care of me.
So if all I got to do is take a shot in the arm and it's a chance that I don't have to go through that, I don't have to send my daughter through those kind of, my daughter's only living parent. And if I can do whatever it is to make that still be a fact that I'm her living parent, I'm willing to do it.
And this is affecting all people, which unfortunately, because of so many of the underlying issues, that we are dying from disproportionately. So if any group needs the vaccine, in my estimation, is the African American community.
But I think it's a matter of stewardship. Stewardship, not just of your body, but it's stewardship of your community, of your brother. When we talk about loving your neighbor, this is one of the ways I love my neighbor, by being responsible. I think it's being very responsible by taking the vaccine that will protect others as well as myself.
This vaccine can save a lot of lives. This can open up the door for us to do many things.
I want to get back to hugging. I want to, I'm tired of lifting up my elbow and pounding people. I want to be able to show people that I care, I miss them. Life is so different without that sense of love. And you never know what a hug does to someone that doesn't have anyone to give them a hug. And I don't want me not having a vaccine to keep me from being that hug to someone that needs a hug.
Meantime, a local pastor tonight has a special message for all of us to get vaccinated for COVID-19. And today he set an example by being among the first in his community to do so. On YouTube, Dr. R.A. Vernon called it a good day.
Talked with my beautiful black doctor last night, Dr. Harris, who just took his second vaccine shot.
Something the senior pastor of the Word Church in Warrensville Heights hopes everyone does.
We prayed for a vaccine. We prayed for something. If you don't get it this time, remember, we're going to keep going. So all the Word Church Nation who wants to can get vaccinated. That's my prayer. Here we go.
And today that prayer began to be answered, with the church partnering with the County Board of Health to host a free vaccine distribution clinic to those in 1A and 1B groups, including Dr. Vernon himself, who repeated it's safe.
When God sends help, don't deny it. So we thought if it's at a predominantly African-American church, that people would believe in me, my voice, and come and take the shot. So I just took mine.
While offering assurances to the black community, especially those who may be reluctant due to distrust based on historical health disparities, something hospitals struggle with too.
And today we have individuals who are leery because of history of experimentation on African American community, are leery of getting the vaccine.
Ohio is among 12 states that has tracked vaccinations by race, with a recent analysis finding that in each of those states, Black Americans were significantly underrepresented. This week, Dr. Fauci addressed one of the reasons.
So we've got to respect that they're hesitant, but then go in a step-by-step way to try and explain, why is it that you're hesitant? Do you believe it was done too quickly? But that is not a reflection of cutting corners. That's a reflection of the application of exquisite advances in the science of vaccine platform technology.
While back at the Word Church, leaders hope this weekend that their actions speak.
I think it's important for Black and brown people of the community to see people like them actually take the vaccine. I believe in God, but I also believe in science. I think it's a great thing to be done.
Adding, they plan to continue this clinic every month until everyone has been vaccinated. And now some experts predict it will not be until the end of this summer that every adult American who wants to be vaccinated can be.
You know, some doctrine would not support vaccination, and others would interpret the doctrine in another way that supports vaccination. If I may share with you my personal view as a strong Christian believer, obviously the belief in God and God's protection is unassailable, but it is not inconsistent with the belief also that the wisdom and knowledge that God has placed in the hands and brains of men to create a vaccine to fight a plague, that is not inconsistent with God's power. In fact, this is God's power. It is God's power acting through men. I mean, the scientists are instruments of God. And I would think that if you have reservations and you have concerns, pray about it, reflect on it, think about it, look at history. You know, there have been times in history when men have been confronted with new diseases, plagues as they have been described in the Bible, that would have wiped out significant portions of populations. And as we have progressed through history, through science and discovery, we have found ways to fight diseases, not just with vaccines, but with other medicines. And the same people who resist vaccines gladly take other medicines, which is the science which comes from the wisdom and knowledge of God. So it is, again, a conflict within the church as to the interpretation of doctrine. I don't want to get involved in that, other than to say that from me personally, I do pray about it. And I believe my conscience is clear that it is the best thing for the country that the citizens take the vaccines.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
When your turn comes for the vaccine, please take the vaccine. It is absolutely important. For those who have hesitancy and fear, and all of that is legitimate, it's healthy. But I believe we have seen the vaccine at work. We know what the risks are. There are no riskless activities in life. We urge you to participate in the national program and get vaccinated.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister Brown says the decision not to be vaccinated is one that will affect more than just the individual.
You could become a carrier of the virus and could infect others, even loved ones, causing them to be hospitalized or even to die.
The nation's leader underscores the cost to the country of not achieving herd immunity.
The reality is, if we do not achieve herd immunity, we cannot reopen our borders to cruise ships. It also means, too, that we may be sanctioned by other countries based on the high level of or prevalence of COVID. They may sanction Antigua and Barbuda and stop their citizens from flying in or to cruise our country.
The consequences, the nation's leader says, will be felt by the people.
That being the case, it means that we will have significant economic hardships. It means that people will remain unemployed for a longer period, and then they will be plunged into abject poverty. That is not the future that we want for the people of St. John City West or the people of Antigua and Barbuda.
He highlights the benefits of herd immunity, which he believes is possible within a few months.
Which will give us the opportunity to fully reopen our economy and to put our people back to work, as well as creating additional opportunities for you.
Sherilyn Beazer reporting for ABS News.
There are many who are doubtful, and we have to respect that. But we have to have the conversations as to what underpins that doubt or that sense of hesitancy. For us, we saw it change in this country, where at the beginning of this particular last outbreak, when we did the start of Operation Seek and Save, 55% of Barbadians being interviewed initially expressed hesitancy and concern about whether they would take a vaccine, and 45% said yes. Within 2 weeks, that started to change, and we saw a complete difference in the trajectory of interest in the vaccines. Within a month of that initial position, we saw and had data that suggested that 79.8%, almost 8 out of every 10 Barbadians, said, "Give me the vaccine we wanted."
In an effort to better inform the African American community about the vaccine, Bishop T.D. Jakes brought in big-name experts for an online event called Conversations with America, Understanding the COVID-19 Vaccine. During the nearly hour-long discussion, Jakes asked questions such as whether these experts had any angst about the vaccine over the long term. Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, the lead scientist on the coronavirus research team, didn't hesitate.
Absolutely no angst at all. You know, one of the things that I think is largely forgotten throughout this is that the first phase 1 clinical trial actually started on March the 16th, which was almost 10 months ago. And so from those people, they've been followed since then, and there are no outcomes for long-term adverse outcomes. Long-term side effects are not something to be worried about.
Much of the concern among Blacks dates back to the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, a 40-year government study involving hundreds of Black men. The men, mostly poor sharecroppers suffering from syphilis, were monitored yet not treated by government health officials. Many died, went blind, or experienced other severe health problems. Dr. Anthony Fauci admitted the skepticism is understandable.
It's a shameful history that we have to just deal with. So whenever I talk to my African American friends and colleagues about getting vaccinated, you always have to show respect for their skepticism and then try to get them to understand why it is safe, it is effective, and it is good not only for your own health, but for your families and your community.
Jakes explained while hard-hit communities of color desperately need the vaccine, access and distribution may be a problem. He suggested using churches and other faith-based groups as a solution.
Is there any thought about getting medical professionals to work through faith-based entities within those local communities where they could go to churches, for instance, and have medical physicians there that could administer the vaccine? Because many of our communities are in food deserts and places like that where they can't get the vaccine.
You could do it by community centers, churches. You mentioned, Bishop, is very important. Faith-based organizations getting involved, but also mobile units to go out into those communities which are not readily accessible.
In the meantime, Jakes says while his conversation provides people with education and knowledge about the shot, he also wishes to offer hope to those affected by the pandemic. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo received the COVID-19 jab together with his wife at a public hospital in Accra The immunization was shown live on local television stations as part of a campaign to help raise awareness about the vaccines. It's become crucial following myths circulating among Ghanaians about the vaccines. In a nationwide address on Sunday, the president tried to dispel the disinformation, telling Ghanaians that the vaccine will not alter their DNA, cause infertility, nor be used as a way to inject tracking devices into people's bodies. Officials say the 600,000 Oxford AstraZeneca jabs received through the COVAX facility last week will be used to inoculate health workers, frontline staff, and people at high risk. A nationwide vaccination will begin from the 2nd of March. Ghana expects to receive 2.4 million vaccines through the WHO COVAX program by the end of the year. The government says it has also approved Russia's Sputnik V vaccines for emergency use. While the government hopes to inoculate 20 million people by the end of the year, it has urged Ghanaians to continue to wear face masks and adhere to all COVID-19 safety measures. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, SABC News, Accra, Ghana.
She says her life went from being the picture of health to a shadow of her former self. I want to bring in Brianne right now and her lawyer, Aaron Seary, because I have a question for him too. Brianne, I want people to understand what has happened to you and why you're doing this. Thank you for being with us. But customarily, I will ignore counsel as much as I can, but not this time. Aaron, I have a question. As a lawyer, is Brianne at all compromised in her ability to go after AstraZeneca because she volunteered for a clinical trial as opposed to just being someone like me or you who got it when it was made available to the public and we were told to take it?
No, I don't think that compromises her at all. I think she's subject to the same restrictions on bringing lawsuits for the most part that you, Chris, or anybody else that was injured from a COVID vaccine. And that's the PrEP Act. That's the federal government explicitly giving the vaccine manufacturers immunity for any injury that occurred from the COVID vaccine. And they didn't just do it, by the way, after the vaccine came out. They gave the immunity. They gave that immunity to them before they even developed the vaccine and did so contractually as well as doing so by law.
Right. Now, look, we know what that debate is going to be, and I think it's a good one to have, which is, well, they were asking us to rush it, says the companies. You know, ordinarily we would have taken longer, so we needed some type of protection. Let's put it to the side. Brianne, you look great. So explain to the audience, what are you actually dealing with, and how has life changed for you so much that you feel you need to litigate this?
Well, you know, the easiest way to explain this is that it's an invisible illness. I mean, we all look fine, right? We're not in a wheelchair. We still have hair. You know, we can still smile and communicate sometimes clearly. But the reality is I am in pain every second of every day. Unfortunately, I have a severe progressive neuropathy that will continue to progress until my life is done. It's something that is a very sharp, tingling electrical sensation, and it courses through my body 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But in addition to that, I have the tinnitus like Sean does. I have the food sensitivities. I'm completely dependent on other people. In my home, at the time, I had a 6 and an 8-year-old kid, and their lives, you know, our lives revolved around them. Mom took care of everything for them. But now, unfortunately, everything revolves around mom. They have to figure out if mom can help them that day with their homework, if mom can make them breakfast, if mom's going to be able to get out of bed, is mom going to be able to take them to school? These are all very simple tasks that people take for granted. But when your health is robbed from you, you know, those things are now things that you have to prioritize from one day to the next, depending on how your body is doing.
When you reported this set of events to the company, what was the response?
Silence. It's that simple. It was silence. I thought that they were going to be there to help me In my contract, they state it explicitly that they will be there to help me financially as well as medically, and they did neither. It's as if they couldn't get away from me fast enough after I reported my injury. I'm nothing more than a number to them, to be totally honest.
Well, it's hard to feel otherwise when they didn't reach out, right? What other message does it send? Well, look, let me give you a little dirty secret that I'm sure Aaron explained to you about litigation. Litigation is about time and who has the most time and who has the resources to extend time. What I can do here in the media is promise you, I don't forget, okay? I don't forget. So until this ends, we're always a phone call away. I'm not saying that everything you say is right and everything is wrong. I got to look at everything. But I will say this, I will follow the process to its conclusion. And AstraZeneca, you are going to get a suggestion to come on this show, and I want to understand why you wouldn't have even reached out to somebody who you'd made a deal with. Brianne, we are here for the duration, and I wish you the best with your family. Counsel, we're always a call away for any developments that you believe are instructive of the process.
Lost his leg. Here he is learning to walk with his new one.
Hey, everybody.
Thanks for the thumbs up there. I see that in what passes for wit on the internet, someone responded to news of Alex's amputation by saying, well, at least he gets 50% off on shoes and socks. Ha ha. But as you can see from that video, even that leaden jest is untrue. Alex, welcome to the show. I'm sorry about the lip of the stage because you actually had to hop up onto it. How is it going with your new leg?
It's getting there. It's been a bit of a challenge because I've had some issues internally that we thought was more serious than what it turned out to be. It's now we're going through some heavy prosthetics, physiotherapy, which was the last of you saw yesterday. That's them. I'm now away for 3 months.
Yeah.
That's them wanting to see if I keep the progress I've made. We're getting there. I'm now to one stick.
You have a good attitude that actually requires some determination and some will to maintain. You were tweeting last week that one of your fellow vaccine victims just committed suicide.
That's 4 in the last 5-6 months, Mark. 2 of them were actual people that had COVID, long COVID, or lung haulers as we call them, who it's just been recognised now that long COVID exists. These people got to the stage where they'd had enough. So we've lost 2 long COVID and 2 vaccine injured to suicide because nobody is helping them.
Yes.
And when they go and try and tell the world through social media, you get misinformation from Twitter, or they get banned or suspended, or like myself, you get it from those that took that are pro-vaccine saying you're being anti-vaccine because you're being negative against the vaccine, and you're getting it from the anti-vaxxer saying well, you took it in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, so we get it from both ends and everywhere in the middle. And when the government put misleading posts, that just lets the whole world into gives abuse. And these people are at a level where you know, you trying to explain the dark places that some of us have to visit. Not because you want to, because you're told that you may not survive the next 24 hours.
Yes.
And then to deal with that trauma, and then you're trying to deal with what's happened to you. You can't do that.
Well, your friend, this latest suicide, there is something lonely and isolating about this. It's also psychologically quite difficult, I would have thought, because if you have a bad car crash or you have a terrible accident and you lose your leg, you understand something has happened to you and it has had devastating consequences, but you survived the car crash and you're lucky to be alive. Here, you just went along, you took a vaccine that everyone from the Queen down says you should take this vaccine, and you wind up losing your leg. Is that tough to deal with?
Beyond belief. And especially when they tell you that you're making up. That is the hardest part. You know, luckily for myself, I didn't have that medically from the beginning. it was pretty much early confirmed what we were looking at and where this was going. But, you know, to know that 1 minute you were perfectly healthy and fit, you know, you at your work.
No. Have you heard from the government about compensation?
I got awarded, I was the first living person to be awarded the Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme on the 22nd of June. Other than that, no.
Well, since then there's been one more. I mean, it's quite incredible to me. There's only 12 people that the government has decided to compensate, most of whom have actually been on this show, strangely enough.
Yeah.
Do you think they're deliberately slow walking this? Yes. They've got thousands of applications.
They've got 1,704 applications as of Freedom of Information 2 days ago.
Yeah. I think
52 processed, as you say, 12 payouts, 40 rejected. They're coming in with 70 claims on average a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's 10 years before we catch up.
Yeah.
You can't do this to people.
No.
You ask people